Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this LIBER webinar on using IIIF, the International Image Interoperability Framework, to share, open, and enrich your collections. This webinar is organized by the LIBER Digital Humanities and Digital Cultural Heritage Working Group, and more specifically by the teams providing expertise and digital collections within this working group. And I am hosting the webinar on behalf of the group. My name is Puk Wildschut, and I am Subject Librarian Linguistics and Digital Humanities at Utrecht University Library, and also a member of the LIBER Digital Humanities Working Group. And if you are interested in what this working group is doing next to organizing webinars, you can click on the link on this slide for more information. I will soon give the floor to our presenters, but I would first like to relate some house rules for this webinar to you and give a short overview of who is presenting. So our presenters will all shed light on IIIF and digital collections from different perspectives, and we are very happy that they are all here today. And I would like to welcome the following speakers. First, Companjen from Leiden University Library Center for Digital Scholarship, Nele Gabriëls from KU Leuven Libraries, Audrey Drohan from University College Dublin Library, and Mike Bennett of University of Edinburgh Library. And then very short for the house rules. This webinar is being recorded, so all participants will receive a link to the recording later today. The slides are on Zenodo, and you can see the chat box for the link. If you have any questions during the presentations by the speakers, please put them in the chat box, and we'll put questions to the speakers at the end of the webinar. The speakers will all be presenting 10-minute talks, so we will have approximately 15 minutes for questions at the end of the webinar. And the questions that you put in the chat box will be collected by my dear colleague Lotte, who will be co-hosting this webinar, and keep an eye out in the chat box. Then I will shortly introduce our first speaker, Companjen. And Ben has a demo for us, very exciting, so he will take over the screen after the introduction. Ben is a research software and data engineer at Leiden University Library Center for Digital Scholarship. And in this role, he helps researchers and teachers reuse data and helps the libraries make their data available for research. He is currently involved in a project aiming to make the library's public domain digital collections available via IIIF, as well as the creation of various educational web platforms that rely on IIIF. And today he will share his screen and give us a demo. Yes, there he is. Please, Ben, take it away.
Thank you, Puk. So, yeah, I have two screens. As mentioned, I work at Leiden University Libraries. This is me. And Leiden University is the oldest university of the Netherlands. And as such, we have in the libraries lots of collections. We also have lots of digital collections, and they used to be dispersed over various systems. They include manuscripts, books, prints, and maps, and many more. Currently we have these collected in our new digital collections system based on Idendora. It's a great system. It allows easy access to many kinds of collections, such as one of my favorite examples. I should have scrolled to the top. This is a manuscript of more or less an encyclopedia. And as you can see, we can already browse the pages. It gives us access to metadata. And we haven't officially announced it yet, but these public domain items have been in the are available via IIIF. If I click this button, which I already did, so I won't do now, we open a new tab, which shows us not the best view, but which allows us to browse the manuscript in a better way. It's more easy to zoom in and out onto details, all powered by IIIF. This viewer is also available elsewhere, and if you configure it differently, it allows you to take annotations as well. I created an annotation, a very simple one, of a tag to a person. But what IIIF also, we are not strictly linked to this specific viewer. We can also use different viewers, all provided by IIIF. IIIF allows us to take the original object and view it in various different systems. The universal viewer is an alternative viewer, and it allows us the basic, the same functionality. It shows us the metadata. We can click through, and it loads the new page. So we don't need to keep using the same viewers and the same central repository system. We can take our objects and, for example, embed them in other websites. As an example, I created a educational website to explain the production of manuscripts and the use of manuscripts. And I embedded this this example of a manuscript in our digital collections. It takes a little bit to load, but then we still have the same options to zoom in and out and flip through the pages. A professor, Erik Kwakkel, and a student assistant added this this extra information with links to Wikipedia, and it describes how manuscripts were created and used. And as this is all JavaScript running in a browser, I was able to add some more functionality and allow shortcuts from the text to control the viewer and jump to the right folio in the viewer. I already discussed annotations in a little bit. A different educational web platform that we created is being used for abnormal hieratic teaching. Abnormal hieratic is the script in the background. There are only a few people in the world who can really decipher these symbols, so you don't have to be ashamed that you can't read anything about it. The image came from the Leuven Museum, and as before, we can zoom in on this image, and all these words have been annotated by a student assistant as well, so that students can read these words and understand what actual Egyptian hieroglyphs are written here. It's one of the great ways of, it's one of the core features of IIIF to use annotations. And this is one way to use them. I have another example in the digital collections repository. a handwritten catalog of a specific collection in our libraries, I can reuse this as well. I can click the manifest. It's not really that interesting for us to see, but this data can be loaded in a transcription platform that we offer called From the Page. And the JSON, the text that you just saw, allows us to import the whole book, the whole manuscript into this system so that people can transcribe it in a crowdsourcing fashion. It's another example of not being constrained to the original repository that hosts all the manuscripts and pages and images. This is a system that allows us to enrich our collections, which I'm sure we'll see more of in this hour. That's what we're doing now. We're also working on, IIIF is helping us to provide our collections to Europeana, which is something we're actively working on. And we're also involved in the IIIF community and technical specification groups for maps that should allow us to host a GIS viewer like this. This is a commercial viewer, but we would like to embed our georeferencing information collected in a crowdsourcing project into our own collections system. So that's what we're working on, and that's all I have. I'm happy to answer questions at the end of the hour. So thank you for now.
Yes, thank you very much, Ben. That is very interesting to see how you embed objects in other websites and import works into different platforms. Very useful. So thank you. Let's go to our next speaker, who will be Nele Gabriëls from KU Leuven. She trained as a historical musicologist and got a PhD in 2010. And as a library and information scientist, Nele has been responsible for project management, process development, and policy preparation with regards to digitization at KU Leuven libraries in Belgium since 2015. And today she is going to tell us more about implementing KU Leuven's library's fair open data policy with IIIF. So if you will.
Thank you, Pak. I just want to give a little disclaimer here. My chat will not be a technical talk, but I am going to look at things in an even more generalistic way. I will also not give a demo like Ben just did. I think it was very interesting to see how the tools have been working for Leiden University, and quite a few of the things that he showed are actually also possible with our implementations. But I'd like to take a step back. Maybe first a couple of words about digitization at KU Leuven libraries. We have only been digitizing since the past 10 years. Most of it at the start was always done through bespoke projects, where we had to look for a process every time we started up the digitization projects. But we have very surely moved towards process and program-based digitization now, and we still have digitization projects going on upon request, for example, by researchers. Almost all our digitization is done in-house. We have a very well-equipped imaging lab. We have an open data policy for our digital surrogates of physical objects that are in the public domain. So that means that everyone can do whatever actions they want to do with all our public domain digitized objects. And in the past 10 years, we have had over 100,000 digital objects being created. Of course, digitization is a very complex process. So my talk here is not just my talk, nor that of my team at the digitization department, but also includes the work carried out by the metadata department, and especially LIBER, who's responsible for any technical developments that are being carried out, including all the IIIF implementations that we have been looking at and that we will be looking at in the future. Of course, we also work together with the collection holders and researchers and education professionals at the university. I think it's fair to say that the past 5 years, our digitization has been moved towards open and fair data. This is not something that one can do overnight, though, even though we made the decision to offer our images as open data in 2016. It was approved in 2016. It has been quite a few years in the making to actually have it implemented sufficiently so that all users can actually use our data in an open way. We have been working towards improving the fairness of our data also, thinking about an improved discoverability. Of course, the metadata is already structured and is always available, has persistent identifiers and any other characteristics of the F and fair data, fair metadata is there. But we have also worked towards the public to try to get our data actually towards the public as well. For example, by creating a new collections discovery platform where all our digitized heritage collection is gathered, but also, for example, by working towards indexing for search engines such as Google and the likes. Of course, key to opening up your data is also that the correct copyright and licensing information is included not only in the metadata, but also included in the view environment for the user to be able to assert that they can perform certain actions with your data. We have changed the metadata model for that reason, as well as changed the viewer to be able to visualize this information. And we're also working towards collections as data, presenting data sets through GitHub. And then, of course, there's IIIF. IIIF was key, of course. On the one hand, it provides a very high-end visualization of our digitized objects, but obviously even more central is the IIIF manifest, the JSON file, that is very important for sharing the data and to making it actually interoperable and reusable. We were early adopters of IIIF in the sense that we had a very early implementation of the Mirador viewer, which was up and running already in 2015 for KU Leuven libraries, and that improved the experience for viewing one of our collections massively, namely the Magister Dixit collection. The viewer that we then used was actually developed within a project that LIBER carried out together with an external partner, the Alamire Foundation. So we didn't really have a hand in what was on offer or what the viewer actually had functionality-wise. And in a way, it was not suitable for supporting our open and fair data policy. There were a number of aspects that were lacking. First and foremost, there was no information on copyright status and conditions of use visualized for the public. There was no download. IIIF manifest actually to be seen by the user, let alone to be downloaded. And also the persistent links within the IIIF manifest were not in place, nor was the manifest itself characterized with a persistent URI. So there was work to be done. And this year, I think we can fairly say that a lot of the work has actually been showing up. Key is, of course, the IIIF manifest. It is the first time that we can say that we're working towards a IIIF manifest for every digital heritage object that we have, whereas previously we would only have a couple of bespoke projects that would be entitled to be presented within the IIIF environment that we have. But now we will generate a manifest for every single object that is there. The URIs to the IIIF manifest have now also been transformed, which actually makes them trustworthy in the long end to be used and reused. And the internal links are also optimized and persistent. You can have these downloaded in the viewer as well, and there's also, for easy sharing, there's a IIIF button in the viewers that I will very briefly say in a minute. Very important for us as well was the performance of the servers where the IIIF was running on, because in fact the loading of the images took a long time previously. So we have transferred to the Cantaloupe server, which has improved the performance, but also is looking at towards the future, so we can include other formats such as PDF and audiovisual materials in the long run as well. So then we have also been working on the viewers. So far, we had one IIIF viewer as shown before, and otherwise there was a general IE viewer that is part of the Limo package. But this year we have implemented a unified, which will be the primary viewer for all our heritage objects in the future. Very short metadata, descriptive metadata about the objects that is being viewed. On a link for the full description in our library catalog. Why do we work like this? Because the library catalog obviously is always being updated metadata-wise, and the metadata that you can view in our actually the preserved metadata from our preservation. Using our content. Apart from the universal viewer, which is new to us, we also have the Mirador viewer, which is improved compared to what we had before. This viewer used mainly for research-oriented collections, manuscripts and special collections or projects that we carry out in the framework of research projects by our research community at KU Leuven, but where you basically have the same linking and functionalities. So it's especially the persistency and the availability of the IIIF manifests that we have been focusing on in the past couple of years. Now we're always looking towards the future, and this is my last slide, so I can probably finish off nicely in time. Of course, IIIF is so much stronger and we can do so much more with that. So first of all, we're looking at presenting OCR data, which we have already done our first trial, also within the universal viewer setting, where the data will be searchable through its OCR data. We're also thinking of looking at the possibilities for metadata enhancement. For example, if we are capturing digitalized collections from other institutions and we have to upgrade the metadata, can we do that through the IIIF ecosystem? We're, as Ben said, also looking towards collection dissemination through our IIIF manifests. We're first of all thinking of Wikidata. Europeana is also on the list. Crowdsourcing is a long-term dream already. It is going to be a future project at some point, especially in collaboration with research and education at the university. And then ongoing is also a project in looking at how we can use IIIF to present and share specific curated data sets that are based on very complex and multispectral imaging data, so that there is a selection of the full complex data set that we can then create a IIIF manifest from, so that we can actually share and offer it to the public for use and reuse. So these are just a few of the lines. They are future music, as we would say in Dutch, but we are looking forward to it already. And I am looking forward to your questions at the end of this webinar, just like Bennett. Thank you.
Thank you, Nele, very much. It's very inspiring to hear how you implement the fair open data policy with IIIF, and something that I think a lot of libraries are thinking about and are trying to do their best to make everything fair and open. So it's very stimulating to hear this. For questions, we will wait until the end of the webinar, but first we are going to our next speaker, who is Audrey Drohan, and she is the Digital Library Manager for University College Dublin. She was involved in the setup of the UCT Digital Library in 2012, which emerged from a successful pilot project run for over 5 years. And the UCT Digital Library contains over 95 digital collections consisting of cultural heritage and related research data. The library were early adopters of IIIF and were the first to implement the framework in Ireland. So Audrey is going to give a presentation, but she had some difficulties with her sound and her video. So I hope that we can at least hear her, and we have a beautiful PowerPoint to watch. So Audrey, are you there?
I'm there. Can you hear me?
Yes, great. Thank you.
Great. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Audrey Drohan, and I want to talk to you today about how we've utilised IIIF at University College Dublin. My talk is also at a more general level. Apologies for the lack of video. The technology gods have not been kind to me today. Next slide, please. Okay, this slide has just some background about the UCT Digital Library. We have a lot of digitised and born digital material from over 27 different partners, and we're currently curating about 480 terabytes of data. Almost all of our collections are open access and adhere in the most part to the FAIR principles. This year we were able to renew the Trusted Digital Repository certification, so we're very pleased with that. And back in 2005, when we started as a project, we had very static HTML web pages, and 6 years later, at the end of that project, we had a very clunky Apache Wicket system, and we're using déjà vu files. It wasn't very sustainable. So in 2010, we had an opportunity to just redesign and rebuild the entire technology stack. Next slide, please. Part of that redevelopment was looking at how users wanted to use our content. They wanted to be able to view and zoom in on the images in the browser without having to download a large image file or having to download a special reader just to view our high-res déjà vu files. They also wanted to add, they wanted other added value functionality. And we wanted something more robust than what we had had during the project phase, as well as moving towards greater interoperability and sustainability. Next slide, please. And thankfully, IIIF offered us this. We were early adopters of the framework, and our director, Dr. John B. Howard, has been an active community member since then. Next slide, please. This slightly out-of-date diagram shows you our technology stack. We've implemented the image presentation and search APIs and dabbled with the authentication API. We also use the Loris image server with JTK and the leaflet client library. Next slide, please. So thanks to IIIF and the Mirador image viewer, we were finally able to unlock the potential of our collections. We did implement the universal viewer for quite a while alongside Mirador, as we got a lot more search functionality with the universal viewer, but Mirador has somewhat caught up, so we decided to keep using just one image viewer for the sake of consistency. Next slide, please. Okay, so Mirador offers various functionality within it for using images. So this is how you can zoom and navigate around the images, so you can pan across the images. Next slide, please. And as you can see, the zoom functionality is amazing. This is where back in 2005, when we first started our pilot project, we took the decision to actually make sure that our images were correctly digitized so that they could be used going forward. So we were scanning at 400 ppi, and we actually have our photographs scanned at 600 ppi. And this is where the IIIF and the viewers really come into their own. The high quality scans really look great. So one of our other functionalities within the IIIF viewer is the alter image attributes. Next slide, please. This is where you can rotate, adjust the brightness, contrast and saturation, convert to grayscale, and invert or mirror the image. Next slide, please. And this is an example of the inverted image. Next slide, please. So part of the viewer, we have the manifest that you can actually see that we generate from our metadata. So you can see it's the general information. Next slide, please. And within it, we can embed our permalinks to our DOIs and embed our right statements. Next slide, please. And also, and this is where the power of the IIIF manifest comes in, we can also list our links to other resources, and that includes other metadata and such as our in-house metadata schema mods, as well as the Europeana metadata standards as well. Next slide, please. So as part of the implementation of IIIF, John Howard also developed our version of an image manipulation tool. Next slide, please. And this brings the user to a new image, which allows them to select a region of the image or the whole image itself. Next slide, please. They can choose the image size, format, rotation, and color, and finally download or link to whatever they've custom selected. This is a great tool, and we use the links on our own information web pages as well. Next slide, please. Users can also select a more traditional method to share either the image or the manifest, and this option is great for bringing images into other IIIF viewers. Next slide, please. And viewing the images are easy. You can have just one canvas or workspace to view the image. Next slide, please. Or open as many as you need to compare and contrast images. This is especially powerful when comparing similar artifacts from different institutions across the world. Next slide, please. The image viewer can display if an index is present, and users can navigate around large volumes using either the index panel or the thumbnails. Next slide, please. And they can also search full text content where OCR, or optical character recognition, has been done on print material, and adjust the image layer as required. Next slide, please. The user annotation functionality is also available, as you've previously heard. And as well as that, there's the ability to link to transcription platforms. Next slide, please. We are currently using From the Page as our transcription platform. Next slide, please. But the transcription can't be displayed on the actual canvas at the moment, so we offer them as TEI file downloads. We've also run into issues around tabular data and synchronized updates for open transcription projects, and this is something that we will be working on into the future. Next slide, please. Finally, back in 2016, we did a pilot project with Europeana to see if we could harness the power of IIIF manifests and sitemaps with the aim of offering an alternative harvesting option to OAI PMH. Next slide, please. It was a great project, and we hope to do some further work on it. Certainly, it would be an easier way for us to push our collections into Europeana. Next slide, please. One of our challenges has been getting people to harness the capabilities of IIIF and trying to get other institutions to adopt it. We know our content has been used in multiple master programs at UCD, but in a very traditional way. That is, they upload the images to their teaching and learning platforms. But that's something that we want to change. We've created extensive help resources for our users. Next slide, please. But we're also aware of the other challenges that we are facing, such as upgrading the APIs and the version of Mirador Image Viewer. This would mean that we'd also have to update our image manipulation tool as well. Getting AV content working through IIIF. At the moment, unfortunately, we've had to use Vimeo and embed the Vimeo in our digital library in order to present images or video. So we would like to harness IIIF for this. And I suppose just in terms of spreading the word about how great it is to have a standards-based approach to present, share, and highlight the wonderful digital collections in the UCD Digital Library. Next slide, please. And that's me. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. That was very informative, and I was amazed about the high quality of the images and how the metadata came together there. Just a lot going on. Thank you so much for this talk. We're going on to our final speaker for today before we get to the questions, and that will be Mike Bennett, and whom some of you have already met in the chat, I can see. He is a software developer working in the field of digital scholarship at the University of Edinburgh, and his work focuses mainly on building tools to enable and support access to the varied collections held by the university's libraries, as well as to assist new teaching and research methods by opening up the hidden data surrounding those collections. He has previously also worked at the Bodleian Library at the University of Oxford and was the technical lead behind the innovative Broadside Balance online project, which transformed data previously stuck in a 1990s cataloging system into a dynamic website powered by linked data. So that's a lot. And today Mike is here to tell us more about harnessing IIIF for full text searching. So please, Mike, if you would take over.
Hi there, good afternoon. Am I coming through okay? Yes, okay, perfect. So hello, my name's Mike. I'm from the University of Edinburgh Digital Library team, and I'm here to talk a little bit about how we are harnessing the power of IIIF for making full text searching more of a reality across our collections. So the problem really that we're trying to solve is that libraries, including the various libraries at Edinburgh University, often have very large collections of textual material which gets digitized but is not easy to access or pass through or use for the average user, especially because the catalog data tends to be uploaded with the digitized material. So lots of metadata about the items, but not really any data about what's inside them. And so, sometimes OCR transcriptions exist for these items, and when they do, they're usually provided either completely separately from the item or in a way that makes it useful but not good for referring to the original item. So a text file, you search for some text and you just return the whole volume. So I should give a brief illustration of something like this that we have at Edinburgh. We have a set of documents which is the Court of Session papers. So these are court records and proceedings from the highest civil court in Scotland. The earliest volume we hold dates back to the early 1600s. And we have about 6,500 volumes dispersed across several libraries around Edinburgh. Many of them are very, very big. So here is a brief picture. You can see from this image here on the right-hand side, these volumes are fairly substantial. And what has happened with them is that we've been doing a pilot project to digitize them and explore the possibilities of using OCR and IIIF for enabling full text searching across the catalogue. So these volumes are mostly just catalogued on a volume level. So each one of those big volumes there will just have a single catalogue record. And if you wish to find something inside it, you have to know exactly what you're looking for and where to go. So we want to open this up and make it more accessible for users, for researchers, teaching purposes, for general members of the public who are interested. And so we're investigating how we can do this using IIIF. So as some of the previous presenters have touched on, IIIF has a set of sort of fairly robust protocols for accessing images, for displaying the metadata associated with the images, and sort of presenting them in a package. So using IIIF manifest to say these objects belong together, here are the relationships between them, here's how you should display them if you're displaying them in a viewer. And it does all of this without prescribing the end viewer the user must use. It just gives you a way of saying, this is how you should do it. So this is also extended to the fact that they have a search API, which allows you to search annotations inside the IIIF objects. So as was previously demonstrated by some of the other presenters, annotations can be created by the user to highlight areas of the image, to transcribe handwritten text. But they could also be machine created. So we have taken these digital images of these volumes and run them through Tesseract to produce OCR based on Alto. And this can be applied then as annotations to the IIIF object, which means that we associate the word bounding boxes, the coordinates of each word on the page from the OCR, with the relevant section of the original image. So using this, we can then provide effectively a search service which links textual-based search to the image that text comes from. So, and to this end, here at Edinburgh, we've developed a small bit of software called WIF, for Word Highlighting in IIIF. It's an open source Python application. It runs based on Apache Solr, and a very large shout out to Johannes Beta and the team at the Munich State Library, who have developed a fantastic Solr plugin for handling OCR formats and doing some very nifty things to return the coordinates in a effective and effective manner that's very sort of computationally useful for the kind of searches we are doing. So this can be used, obviously, because it's the IIIF search service, in any IIIF viewer. This is the big advantage of it, that supports the search API. So mirrored or a universal viewer, you can just plug in and go. Once the search service is added to the manifest, any viewer that understands how IIIF search works will be able to use this backend service without any further work required. So it allows you to provide searching inside your objects without having to do the individual implementations, because you use, this is the biggest advantage of IIIF, standardized APIs. So we can create this service and we can plug it in anywhere that you plug in IIIF services. So here is a brief screenshot of this in action. And so this is a search inside the volume. This is a volume with, I think, 1,500 pages. And you do a nice search for James Montgomery, and it takes you directly to the page with the text you have searched highlighted. So for a user using the documents and referring to the original documents, this is really powerful, because if you're searching through a legal case, you go straight to the context. You don't just search James Montgomery and get given a kind of Google-style hit that says, oh yeah, here you go, here's a 1,500-page document. Your search terms appear somewhere inside this document, or just a large transcription of text. But you're able to go directly to the original image and to see in context the text you have searched, the match you have got. So now you can start there. If you want to read this whole document, you can now just page through it in the IIIF viewer as if you were reading the real thing in person. So this is obviously a very different approach to the way that sort of search usually works, where you refer to the record for the object, and then the user can kind of take the object, interact with it. This is taking you inside the object as the default way of searching. So for materials such as this, where you have large contents of text data that are not catalogued, that are not transcribed, it becomes IIIF becomes a very powerful tool for opening up these collections and making them accessible. So the other thing you can do is you can take the IIIF Search API and extend it slightly to build what we call a snippet search. So this now, instead of searching inside a single volume, is searching across the whole collection and returning snippets in context of the images. So this is the same kind of search approach, but allows you to say, here are your results from the whole collection. And when you click the kind of +8 more or +2 more, it takes you back to this viewer. So you're injected straight into the full IIIF experience of being able to browse around, compare objects, and move them. So that's a very brief demonstration of the power of IIIF for full text searching. We'll take some questions, I think, in collaboration with everyone at the end of the thing. And if you're interested, please hook up with me on Twitter, have a look at the code on GitHub. It's all there. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. This was super interesting. It's great to see this new way of searching actually within the works in context. I am getting excited to use it. So I would like to invite our speakers to turn on the cameras if possible. And Audrey will be here, of course, with her sound. There are some questions posted in the chat. I will just take a short look back at them. I will just start with a question for Bennett and just work through the speakers. We have 13 minutes left, so I think we can handle a lot of the questions. My first question then is for Ben from Hamad Al-Rouei, and he asks, when others do transcriptions based on your manifest, do you get those changes back to your manifest?
That's a great question. And in principle, the manifest is not changed if anyone annotates your works. From the page allows you to get the transcriptions back as annotations. So as long as your from the page instance is open and the collections are public, you can get the transcriptions back. There's no automatic way to get them back into your repository system, but that's something that that's on our list to implement.
Okay, maybe there's a question related to this from Marianne Lefferts for Audrey, actually, and she asks, are annotations that a user adds to the image for their use only, or are they shared with the public? So maybe you could elaborate some more on that.
Yeah, it's similar to what Bennett says. I mean, once you create your annotations, it's connected to your instance of the canvas. So this is something that we have been discussing for many, many years, and it's something that we will be continuing to work on, because it is something we all feel quite strongly about. The whole annotation side of things is, aside from user annotations, but also OCR as annotations, and then transcription as annotation. You know, this is all something that we would like to see progress into a more mature kind of sort of level. And you know, you can actually sign up. There is a connection to Hypothesis available through the Mirador viewer on our website. But again, this is something that, you know, it's not something we monitor, not something that we actively pull the annotations back into our system. So again, from a preservation point of view as well, it is something that is high on our list to sort out.
Mm-hmm. And maybe something else to sort out, which was on your list, where there's a question about. Robin Rice asks, it would be good to hear more about how to work with tabular data, the future plans at UCD. Could you tell something more about that?
So the tabular data, we have a number of rather large ledgers that we've gotten through our various digitalization projects, and the data is set out in a very tabular way. And when you put it into something like From the Page, you can't specify columns and then rows. So this is an issue for us because eventually down the line, we would like to match, obviously, names to a specific area, on the canvas. So we've been playing around with it for a while, and we've been talking to the folks over in From the Page, Ben and Sarah. But it is something, again, it's on our very long list of things to sort out and get working over the years, because we started off with a small amount of tabular data on our manuscripts, but that's growing. So it's along with AV content, this is something that we would like to get sorted, and it would be a great opportunity to maybe work with other institutions on this problem, because I'm sure other people have come across this issue as well and would like to see it get fixed.
Yeah, I see people nodding as well, so I think this could be a start of something. I have a question for Nele here from Robin Rice, which is a very interesting one, I think. He asks, I'd like to hear more about using GitHub for data as collections. Can he hear more?
Yeah, so this we have just started this trajectory on data as collections, and we have started with providing some metadata sets that DH students have been cleaning up, and we've been publishing them. We don't really have a space within our own digital ecosystem to actually offer them. So we're looking around what to do and how to do it. So we have included them in a GitHub page. And obviously also they have DOIs created through the Zenodo platform. So they're available there. The next step we have to take now is to try to get people to that environment. So we're working on a page within our own websites to point people also in that direction. One of the reasons we want to do this is the descriptive metadata in our metadata repository is very rich often, but it's also very buried away. So you can get the data for one library record, so for one item or object, and you can request collections, but it's not clear that it's possible at the moment. So that's why we're trying to make them more easily, not only machine, but also research readable.
Well, maybe talking about machine readability, I have a question from Mike, actually from Lotte, our co-host, who asks, why did you opt for Tesseract to OCR? Oh, you are muted, yes.
I was still muted. Let's try that again. We opted for Tesseract for OCR, mostly because I'm an open source fanatic, and I fully believe that we should be using things that are open, that are free, that are reusable as much as possible. So I, on a kind of personal, this is must make it very clear, I'm not representing the views of my institution here, but just my own views. On a very personal level, I have an intense hatred for Abbey, for anybody that's charging you to use stuff which is built around open source software. Transcribers, which you now have to pay for, was built on EU taxpayer-funded data. It's backed by a whole lot of open source software. And so I find turning these things into a business personally very abhorrent. But also from an output point of view, we found for historic documents, the ability to get results with Tesseract is much better, because you can train it specifically for the kind of material you're working with. So, for example, with the session papers, we're dealing with lots of documents from the 1600s and 1700s. We have a prevalence of long S characters and other interesting typographical anomalies from those eras, which tend to fall afoul of slightly more conservative OCR setups, which are geared for modern documents. They're looking for a nice page of printed paper, which they can take and produce clean OCR from, and that's very often not the case with the material we're dealing with. So the ability to have a lot more direct control over all of the variables of the OCR, scanning page segmentation, of line detection, of looking at individual character heights, of dealing with the fact that you often have kind of block capitals starting sentences that are significantly larger. So they cross 2 or 3 lines of the actual printed text. Having control of all of these gives us much better results in the end. So that's why we opted for Tesseract.
That is a very clear answer. Another question for you just came in. How do you index and link the pages with their corresponding text for full text search? And are these represented and stored in the manifests?
So the way we deal with this on a technical level is that we keep the alto file, which is the US Library of Congress style for representing OCR transcriptions, with word level coordinates. We keep that, and then we index that inside Solr, so that when the text is searched, we're able to retrieve the coordinates of the match, and we use the same IDs for the pages inside the alto file as the canvas IDs. So we have a little bit of code that says, okay, if the hit is on page 6, that means the canvas ID is going to be page 6. And we use this to produce the annotation results for IIIF. So that's kind of a high-level technical thing. By all means, feel free to kind of reach out to me if you want to discuss the nitty-gritty technical details more.
Okay, thank you. I think those were the questions that were posted in the chat. We are almost at 3 o'clock here. I see that Lotte asked for the GitHub one. We already discussed the GitHub question with Nele. So unless there is a second GitHub question that I missed. No, that was the question. If anyone has any more questions, we still have a few minutes left. We have a question on funding, which I can ask, which is a very indiscreet question. The person says who is asking. She's asking, is work on IIIF well funded in your institution? So don't spill where you get your funding from to everyone here. So maybe some of you could say something about that.
Sure. A lot of my time goes into working on the environments that teachers use to teach Arabic or manuscripts production, and they are, those platforms are based on IIIF. So it's me, and there are a couple of people also working on the project that aims to get all the public domain images available through IIIF. But it's infrastructure work, and we hope that once it's all done, it's just part of the regular costs. So we're funded well enough.
Yeah.
Maybe I can say something for KU Leuven Libraries. We have actually a mixture of funding. In a way, we try to develop the more bespoke and extra functionalities within project funding, together with researchers like the 3PI project for representing multispectral, curated multispectral data sets. And those implementation and developments always are being pushed back towards our regular systems. So we try to capture what we can develop within funded projects into our day-to-day business. But on top of that, of course, there's always a cost and time for development, just to upkeep and keep upgrading the more commonly used tools. And that used to be different viewers, and now we're going towards IIIF more and more. So it's a combination.
I don't know if Mike has any more to say on this issue, or he only uses open source software, so there's no funding there. No. Well, we have reached the end of our webinar. Thank you to all the speakers, of course, for presenting your talks and for your time. Thank you everyone who has attended this webinar. my co-hosts for helping, of course. As said before, the webinar is recorded, and you will all get a link to the recording and the slides. Well, some of the speakers have already mentioned that you can reach out to them if you want to, so please do so if needed. Well, again, thank you very much. I hope you all have a great and safe and healthy day. And who knows, we all will meet at another webinar or maybe in real life in the future.